Kinger is portrayed as a massive white king chess piece, dressed in a regal purple robe with hovering eyes and floating hands for appendages. He's extremely timid, antsy, and mentally unstable, forgetting things very often and being prone to startling, even if the source of the fear has been standing next to him for minutes on end. He seems to have an affinity for insect collections, as he mentions them multiple times, and he also seems to have some hidden knowledge about how the digital world works, as shown in his speech to Jax about virtual food. As for Kane, we know that he essentially has control over everything in the realm of the digital circus, like some kind of god of showmanship. He has the tendency to break down, both mental-wise and just straight up code-wise, and according to his character bio, he was based off the sadistic AI from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. But instead of taking pleasure in torturing his captives, Kane's mistreatment of the circus guests mostly just comes from blissful ignorance or inattentiveness. AKA, he's not sadistic, he's just very aloof. Also, for some reason, he has knowledge of real-world environments, being able to construct a perfect replica of the offices at CNA Studios, which is presumably the place where the Digital Circus game was being developed. He's inspired to create the map when the circus occupants are asking for an exit, but he was never sure what to put on the other side, hence why he was hoping nobody would see it. Now, on their own, these various quirks and traits don't seem to have any clear connection to something bigger yet. We're gonna need more pieces to complete this puzzle, right?
No. Not really.
I'm swatting like Baby Ruth and calling my shots here, but with everything we know so far, I like to think that Kinger isn't just some random schmub who got sent into the game like everyone else. He's actually the lead developer of the amazing digital circus itself. He's the mastermind behind this entire digital world, and I'm gonna explain why. First off, his in-game appearance is loaded with evidence. He's portrayed to be a king in a game of chess, which is undoubtedly the most important piece. The whole point of chess is to defeat the king. If you lose him, it's checkmate. The game is over. And if you don't have the king piece at all, there's essentially no point. There's no win-loss condition, and essentially, no game. In the same way that if a project loses its lead developer, then there's also no game. His purple robe not only exudes kingliness to complement his design, but purple is a color that symbolizes power, wealth, and luxury. While the chess piece shows that he has power over the game itself, the robe can show that he has power and wealth outside of the game, probably having a high position in the company he works for and being paid a very handsome salary for his hard work. So far, it sounds like this guy has a pretty good life. Until you get to the most telling features of his look: the eyes, the hands, and the lack of a face. While Kinger is definitely being paid well and has been given a prestigious position at this company, at the end of the day, the higher-ups on the corporate ladder don't see him as a person. He has no face in the eyes of this company. They could care less about the humanity, physical, and mental well-being of the man behind the game. They simply see him as a tool to be abused and exploited. He is meant to seek out problems and then code to fix those problems. That's all they want from him. They don't care about anything else. Just do your dang job. And trust me, corporate's lack of sympathy for humanity is going to come into play later as well. Now let's look at his personality. I mentioned before that he makes constant references to insect collections for some reason. At first I just thought he attended the meeting of the Biers every month, nothing crazy.
Bug collection, yeah.
But instead, I think this might be referring not to actual insects, but to bugs in a game. You know, programming errors, things that developers are meant to catch and get rid of when they find them. Something that Kinger would definitely be doing 24/7 if he was working on a game. This would also give some context to the conversation with Jax, where he's curious about Kinger's knowledge of the digital world. If he actually made the game and had previous programming experience, it would explain this fleeting knowledge on the subject. Heck, if you really want to Matt Pat it up in this, you could even say that Kinger and Bubbles' intros being directly connected in the Meet the Gang video could be hinting at a direct link between creator and creation. But this ain't no extreme yoga class, so I'm not willing to stretch that far. Okay, fine, so Kinger's the lead developer. Then how exactly did he get inside the game? Why is the game so broken? And if he's the one who created Kane, did he give him the knowledge of the real world by downloading it into his code or something? Well, there's not much ammo in the cannon at the moment, but here's what I think happened. Kinger started off developing the digital circus in private without any major studio interference, like a Steve Wozniak in his garage kind of setup. His goal was to make the most immersive virtual reality experience to ever exist. You would be able to feel sensations that have never been possible in a game before. It would even scan your brain and create a custom avatar based on your likes, dislikes, and overall personality. Like if VR chat could read your mind. And it would all be hosted by an enthusiastic ringmaster, one of the most complex AI at the time that would guide you through fun games and whimsy the second you enter the world. It was obviously still in the early stages of development, but the premise was solid and all of the plans were laid out. While he was working on the project, he was dating a fellow programmer who had a job at CNA Studios, one of the biggest game developers on the scene at the time. And when he shows her his current progress on one of their dates, she is absolutely blown away by it and recommends to her bosses that they bring Kinger on board with his revolutionary new idea. Give him the funding that he needs to make this dream a reality. And the corporate suits like what they see. And obviously what they see is dollar signs. So they bring Kinger into the company, place him in a lead developer position, hire a crew to help him out, and official production on the amazing digital circus truly begins. At first, it seems like things are going great. He's got a new office, better pay, he's working alongside his lady love. What could go wrong? Well, the further the game gets into development, the more the suits demand that he finish it faster, since he's wasting their time and money with his slow, careful coding. This leads to a lot of crunch time, a lot of rush jobs, and in the end, the game just gets riddled with more and more bugs that Kinger really struggles to fix. Eventually, the higher-ups just fire Kinger's crew altogether, since development is taking too long and they don't want to pay more people than they have to. Granted, they absolutely have the money to pay those people since they rake in billions a year, but why give money to workers when you don't have to, right? So now Kinger is the only person working on the game, meaning all the pressure and all the long hours are forced upon him. The only person that gives him any help and relief is his girlfriend, who comes into the office during the night shift when her own hours are over to comfort him and help him code the game. And during those nights, they become closer than they've ever been. So that's at least a silver lining. Eventually, the higher-ups demand to see at the very least a demonstration of what Kinger has been creating so far. A vertical slice of this VR world, if you will. Kinger initially refuses since the game is far from finished, and testing a glitchy game that's meant to scan human minds can only lead to problems. But the higher-ups assure him that they have some willing test subjects who have already signed contracts, so they won't have to worry about getting sued or anything for this. That's not exactly the concern he had, but they go through with it anyway. When the test subjects put on the headsets, much to everyone's shock, they are literally sent straight into the game. Their bodies completely disappear, and the only semblance of their existence that remains at all are these new sentient avatars that the game created from scanning their minds. Though due to the game's buggy programming, there are a few things noticeably different from Kinger's original vision. For example, while the player avatars seem to be based off the personality of the players as intended, it seems like the game is externalizing everyone's deepest internal flaws. Like the game picked the most unstable part of a person's psyche to be their permanent physical form. I saw a lot of people comment on how the designs of the digital circus characters might be based on what they were like in real life. Like how Ragatha might have been a bit of a doormat who's quick to take abuse and easy to forgive, hence her beaten up ragdoll appearance, and Dangle, well, she's pretty self-explanatory. If this is what the game wound up doing to the humans who played it, then this observation would make a lot more sense. Also, since there are some unnamed characters on the background doors in these hallways, we're gonna say that these were the avatars of the original test subjects. When corporate sees the results of this test, they basically just say, alright, I guess we can chalk that up to a bug that needs fixing. Good thing we're not legally liable for any of this. Oh well, get back to work. They basically could care less about those people and just want the game to continue development. Kinger, meanwhile, is straight up horrified that he just doomed 3 people to be stuck in a buggy mess of a game with no way out at the moment. His girlfriend tries to reassure him that he'll be able to fix this, and he does his best to do just that. But as he continues to watch the trapped people in-game while he works, he notices that they end up forgetting things like their names and searching frantically for some kind of exit or escape to no avail, going crazier and crazier by the day until at one point he witnesses a horrific sight. one of the trapped people completely gives up all hope and becomes the first ever character to abstract, and becomes a glitchy abomination that rampages through the game, destroying everything it touches. Kinger quickly programs a place in the game to contain this thing until he can find a way to reverse it, which he obviously is never able to. Eventually it gets to the point where Kinger almost gives up hope himself. He literally cannot find any way to transfer a person from digital to physical. Heck, they don't even have a body to return to anymore. But at the very least, he wants to find some way to keep these people from going insane and abstracting. He tries to code in little messages or hints that the developer is watching them, and he's trying his best to get them out. But the game is so beyond broken that these messages are rarely seen by any of the surviving humans. So he only sees one possible solution for the time being. If these people want an exit, and I can't give them one yet, the least I can do is get them out of this buggy mess and into another game that is way more stable, code-wise and mentality-wise. Not an exit from the digital world, but at least an exit from the world they're stuck in. He's basically going to create a virtual version of the city they're all from in an attempt to not only get them away from all that glitchy madness, but hopefully restore their lost memories bit by bit. And it'll all start in the game development office where their most recent memories were formed. Like a retrace your steps kind of deal. He works on this much more stable side game during the night shift when no one's looking over his shoulder, and he makes decent progress, getting to the end of the office building in only a few nights of effort. But one day, corporate catches him asleep at his desk and realizes what he's doing. They tell him that he is in major breach of contract, not only by wasting company resources to work on a side gig, but also because he's using the likeness and logos of CNA Productions for personal and/or external commercial use without permission. And Kinger just stands up from his desk and gives him a big fat f*** you. They are treating the damnation of human lives like they were just minor inconveniences. They only care about increasing their bottom line and not that there are real people trapped in this digital prison that they rushed him through to meet demands. The higher-ups say that's none of his concern and tell him to delete that map immediately. But Kinger, with a swift motion, throws the incomplete map straight into the code files. And because the files are so massive, disorganized, and buggy, the higher-ups have no way of locating or retrieving it. They tell Kinger that this is a fireable offense and force him to leave. They will find another programmer that is more cooperative to finish this game. Kinger says that there is no way he is leaving this game in their hands and tries to walk out the door with it, with his girlfriend pitching in to help him. But knowing that this could lead to trouble for them if word gets out, the higher-ups force two headsets onto their heads and shove them into the game to keep them and the whole situation quiet. This leads to both Kinger and his girlfriend losing their bodies and turning into game avatars. Kinger into a chess piece king and his girlfriend into a chess piece queen, the same one we see on the hallway door in the pilot. The girlfriend feels extremely guilty over the whole situation, since she feels like she's the one who caused all this trouble in the first place. Like she's the one who recommended he join the company, for example. She tries as hard as she can to find an exit to the game to make up for what she did, but in the end, she only winds up going insane and abstracting right in front of Kinger's eyes. And this is essentially his breaking point. All the stress from the game development, the fact that he has 3 innocent lives on his hands, the fact that he's trapped in this game forever, and now the only person who's always been by his side is gone. All of this piling up finally sends him over the edge and causes him to lose it. The only reason he doesn't abstract like the others is because of the circumstances. From what Ragatha tells us, Circus mates abstract when they start to question the purpose of reality and why you're even alive in the first place. Basically an existential crisis. But Kinger's mental break occurred through different means, like emotional damage, guilt, witnessing death, etc. You know, outside factors like that. Which, depending on how you see it, is actually even more sad. And that's basically the state that everything is in right now.